seeing people on the right calling people on the left demons, saying that they were evil, communists, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about leadership here, and you understand what I'm talking about, okay?
It would be good if one Democrat does what I have come on this network and said a million times. And I've looked at my own party, and when they're wrong, I've addressed that and said that and agreed with them. But a lot of people who are of the left, of the Democratic Party, use the term Nazi, use the term fascist.
And when you ask Republicans to describe the typical Democrat, they describe a kind of monster version of the typical Democrat. When you ask a Democrat to describe the typical Republican, they describe someone far more extreme.
Organization that was just mentioned, that is the problem. When you see your political opponent as subhuman, when you see them as a Nazi, when you see them as a fascist, you can mentally justify doing extreme things.
One was dehumanization of opponents. Two was identity cleavages. And three was disinformation and conspiracy theories. Does that sound familiar to your viewers, to anybody at this table?
We're deep
Resonates
in
with.
For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today.
Hello, everybody. Guys, as you probably all already know, Charlie Kirk has passed away. I'm going to be as direct as possible as I can with you all. My emotions and thoughts were where I expected them to be. Let's get into this segment and we'll talk about it.
Charlie Kirk's assassination is tragically now more evidence of the rise in political violence in this country. Former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords posted tonight, the democratic societies will always have political disagreements, but we must never allow America to become a country that confronts those disagreements with violence. Giffords, of course, was shot in the head in 2011 at a campaign event in her home state. 6 people were killed and 12 others were injured. In 2017, Republican Congressman Steve Scalise shot at the baseball game, the congressional baseball game in Washington. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden and this network, all targets of bomb and death threats in 2018. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, the subject of a domestic terror plot in 2020. The January 6th riots, there were chants for hanging Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi. 2022, Speaker Pelosi's husband was attacked in a home invasion, and Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin was confronted on stage by a man with a weapon. In 2023, Republican Senator Rick Scott was the target of death threats and swatting, and the 2024 assassination attempt of President Trump in Pennsylvania. Earlier this year, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's family and his home were targets of an arsonist, and on June 14th, Minnesota Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated in their home. Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also shot and critically wounded. This is...
So guys, let me off the back say something. I don't believe any human has the right to decide who gets to live or who gets to die. You are no God, you are not deaf. I find all forms of violence barbaric and vile. Unless you're defending yourself, you should never have to become violent. But let me tell you something. Do you not find something odd here? Isn't it odd that only one of those happened before Trump came into office? You know, before the comments that Mexico is sending murderers, rapists, calling Democrats enemy of the American people. The comments of immigrants are poisoning the blood of the nation. We just need one bloody violent day. This disgusting, dangerous rhetoric we all know started with Trump. And Charlie Kirk and these other pundits follows right along with him. They are still doing it right now. It was all for money and power, spreading true hate and evil out to this world. And listen, let me tell you something. They keep running up to dynamite and they keep lighting it and they keep running away giggling. They keep doing this over and over. This time, the dynamite blew up on Charlie. Am I surprised? Of course. Am I shocked? Of course not.
Is a poison that is now in the bloodstream. And I just want to give voice to, I think, what all of us in the country, not just in the studio, but all of us in the country are feeling tonight, which is that when you can't go out in a university campus and speak without risking being shot, when you can't stand at a campaign rally without risking being shot, none of us are safe in a country like that, Governor. And I'm just wondering, I mean, are we at a point where we are going to finally address that and not just fold it into the pre-existing partisan disagreements that we have?
Well, I think you put your finger right on one of the main points here, Abby. And I had a chance today to do some research, including running what are the reasons for political violence or triggering dramatic political violent events through several AI chatbots. And there are numerous factors, but three of the most prominent that kept coming over and over again. One was dehumanization of opponents. Two was identity cleavages. And three was disinformation and conspiracy theories. Does that sound familiar to your viewers, to anybody at this table?
We're deep in
Resonates
that.
with all of us.
Yeah.
And I would add just two more. These are mine. We have a major mental health crisis in this country. We have way too many people out and about who are disassociated, who are seriously mentally ill, some of whom, not all of whom, are prone to violence. And for those individuals, we need better solutions. And the last one is undeniably, we have a political hysteria, commercial, industrial complex in this country that whips people into a frenzy.
Too many effing guns? Nothing about too many effing guns. Incredible.
Those are all, I think, incredibly valid points. I just want to play, though. I mean, we heard from the president tonight. We played a little bit from him earlier today about Charlie Kirk, who I know is such a huge part of his coalition. But he also broadened this out. We don't have a suspect yet, but he broadened this out to what he described as those who contributed to this atrocity. I want you to listen to this.
Of course he did.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now.
So
Well,
disgusting.
among Donald Trump's many accomplishments is that he changed political culture. He went where other candidates had not before. You ran for president, you didn't talk like Donald Trump. And demonizing is part now of the repertoire of political speech. And yet, you know, Gabby Giffords is right. We should not settle our disagreements through violence, but we do. And I think this sickness is in the civic soul of the country and our phones. You know, we have become accustomed to demonizing each other because we don't know each other anymore. We have segregated ourselves into these little culturally pure, politically pure neighborhoods and states even. And when you ask Republicans to describe the typical Democrat, they describe a kind of monster version of the typical Democrat. When you ask a Democrat to describe the typical Republican, they describe someone far more extreme than most people who voted for Donald Trump. We don't know each other anymore.
I think he's right about part of it, but I think you have to look at the whole picture, which is that, to your point, that kind of language is happening on all sides of the political spectrum. And you can't really look at political violence, including even if you just took a snapshot of this year, and say that it's only coming from one side of the political spectrum. And that is what makes it an American problem that we have to address, not a partisan problem.
Sure, but Abby, excuse me, I'm thinking of Gabby Giffords. It would be good if one Democrat does what I have come on this network and said a million times. And I've looked at my own party, and when they're wrong, I've addressed that and said that and agreed with them. But a lot of people who are of the left, of the Democratic Party, use the term Nazi, use the term fascist. Southern Poverty Law Center called Turning Point USA a right-wing extremist group, you know, something on those lines. Those things aren't true. And when you hear, like, the Vice President of the United States call Trump and his supporters, you know, downstream, fascists and Nazis, it would be good for someone to come out and just acknowledge what we all know, that that isn't the case. I think, though, bigger picture, we have to learn to differentiate between anger and hate in politics. Anger is what gets young people out there in the streets, putting up flyers, knocking on doors, advocating for candidates. It's what gets people to run for office. It's why people voted for Barack Obama or Donald Trump or whoever. Anger is a good force in politics. Hate and that dehumanization that was just mentioned, that is the problem. When you see your political opponent as subhuman, when you see them as a Nazi, when you see them as a fascist, you can mentally justify doing extreme things. That's the line that nobody in this system should cross.
Yeah, I totally agree.
This is so effing insane. No, I don't totally agree. This is so effing insane. None of this ever was like this until Trump came into office and welcomed this kind of rhetoric. I mean, Trump, the reason why people were calling Trump a Nazi or fascist is because he was using word for word words that Hitler used. Poisoning the blood of the nation. Democrats are enemies of the people. This is not dangerous rhetoric to you. Trump saying in rallies, "Oh, I'd like to punch him in the face." Hey, if you punch him in the face, I'll bail you out. Like, effing, this is unbelievable to me. Let me tell you something. The president right now, Trump, you just saw him, is already saying it's the Democrats' fault without the criminal even being caught. No one is to blame more than Trump and the Republican Party that leaped into this dark void with him. Trump has Charlie's blood on his hands, 100%. He's truly an evil man that spawned these little evil minions. One which Charlie most certainly effing was. I don't care what anyone says. And why did he do it? All for money and fame.
I guess I just wonder, we have to address all of it. I mean, I was on, the internet today, seeing people on the right calling people on the left demons, saying that they were evil, communists, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about leadership here, and you understand what I'm talking about, okay? What does leadership demand in this moment from the top down to set the tone? I can't imagine that a conversation about what's really going on in this country can only be directed at one side of the equation.
Not long ago, I wrote an op-ed for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune called More Than Devils Left, and it was based on a phrase from John Dutton in the Yellowstone series when somebody was saying he's making a bad deal with bad people, and he said, you're making a deal with the devil, and he said there's only devils left. The point of the op-ed was, in our country, while all the folks on the fringes get a lot of attention, there are more than devils left. We have to have leaders, to your question, who see the goodness of the country, who see the goodness of people collectively, even if some individuals behave poorly, and rise above that, all of that, and have us call out our better angels, look to our better angels. And leaders have to be role models. I'm a big believer in leaders having to set the tone and being able to set the example. And it starts with each of us and all of us.
Yeah.
It starts with Trump. It starts with Trump, and we all know this.
One of the things that hurts so much about today is Charlie Kirk was doing that.
Yes.
Okay? He was murdered on a university campus, sitting under a tent that proclaimed his invitation to speech. Prove me wrong. And he wanted people, invited people to challenge him, to counter him. And I didn't necessarily agree with Charlie Kirk, and a lot of people found what he said hurtful. But free speech sometimes stings, right? Free speech is supposed to get your attention, supposed to try to change your mind. And there is a school of thought that free speech is violence or free speech is a myth. It's not. It's the only way out, and he was practicing it, maybe in a way that I wouldn't have.
And we don't know about this shooter yet, but I'll make a bet. The pattern is young men, not always young, but almost always men, deranged. And we think it's rational. It's like, well, why would you shoot Charlie Kirk? Because he was for free speech. He was reaching out. He was you could disagree with him, but he was trying to make an effort to be a uniter, or at least somebody who'd have an honest, open debate, and he gets shot. Exercising what's on his mind, he gets shot in the head. It's terrible, but I'll lay a wager that the individual they find is going to likely, not certainly, be severely mentally ill and deranged. And we have to address that. We have way too many people exposed to that and violent.
And have access to guns.
Can I play, let me play what...
Oh, yeah, access to guns. Hey, Republicans, I know how we could have stopped all this. More guns, right? If every student had a gun, we could have stopped this, right? That's always the answer. More and more guns. we only have more guns than people in this country. If only we had 2 guns per American, then that for sure would bring down gun violence. Right, conservatives? Huh? That's not the answer, morons? Oh, I know, the National Guard, right? Trump is sending the National Guard to Utah, right? Punk asses.
Ben Shapiro said about his own personal safety as somebody who, very much like Charlie Kirk, is viewed as a sort of conservative, has a big megaphone, a sort of movement leader type of figure. This is what he said about his safety.
I despair on behalf of my country. I don't know what this means for the country. I do not know what this means for America, truly. When political figures who just are out to discuss and debate in public are gunned down in cold blood, I do not know what we can expect next. I've had significant security concerns before. Now, yeah, security team is saying you should put on a bulletproof vest. Okay, fine, I'll do it, but I think it's overkill. I know Charlie had the same feeling because we'd had that conversation. And that you feel like, okay, well, is it really that big? Okay, so somebody might take a swing or somebody might yell at you. And then gradually, it seems that in this country, we have come to the conclusion that if somebody disagrees with you strenuously enough politically, that violence is now a necessity.
Yeah, I mean, look.
And the polls taking on that, overwhelmingly, Republicans, conservatives believe that violence was okay on your political opponents. Like, this is insane that no one's bringing this crap up.
A lot of people know what he's talking about. If you are in the public eye today, if you're a member of the media, if you're a commentator, if you are a politician, you risk every time you walk out your door some crazy person coming up to you and doing something. And that is the key to the destruction of a democracy. When people don't think that they can walk out their door and say their viewpoint or work as a journalist, cover politics without somebody trying to kill them.
You know, and we've done this before, and sometimes in the commercial breaks, I like to read some of the messages that I get, routinely, and we laugh at them, but in the back of my head, and now it's to the front of my view, some of these people are crazy. Some of these people are really problematic. And the conversation I had with my wife driving over here was, whether it's worth me being a vocal Trump supporter or a vocal conservative, whether it's actually worth doing it. And the answer I had was that it is. I mean, that the goal of political violence is to suppress free speech. So I think it is important for people to come out, say things that others find offensive, that others find, upset their core. That's part of the process. But I will tell a story, and I'll say who it is. Zohran Mamdani texted me today. And he is someone I've been right here in this chair criticizing, and I criticize him on many outlets. And he texted me something I said about him and another candidate. And we exchanged texts, and we had a laugh about it. And we said, great, see you soon. And I wish more people knew that the worst thing I want to happen to Zohran Mamdani is I want him to lose the race. And I do. I want him to lose. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. I think it would be beneficial if the talking heads of the world expose some of our pleasant chats in the green room, the pleasantries. I know many people on this show are friends personally. I'll be golfing with some people I debate occasionally in a couple of weeks. It's not all life and death all the time. We can debate fiercely. We can try to make each other lose. That's the goal of this all. But at the end of the day, we are all Americans. We are all hopefully swimming in the same direction for a better country. And I think that needs to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I say that a lot about this show. People don't realize that people who sit at this table who have diametrically opposite views, sometimes they're friends. Sometimes they're going out to drinks afterwards. But I do want to, you mentioned Zohran Mamdani. He had...
So guys, I'm going to leave it there, but I just have to say, maybe the answer is stop spreading hate. Stop demonizing people, every single group that you don't agree with. That's not a white Christian male. Like, the constant assault, disgusting attacks on black people. I mean, of course, again, I'm not for violence, but you cannot be surprised when someone has had it. We do have crazy people. We do have people that have, that have different type of faculties and will go that extra step. How do you not understand this? And I just have to say, I have condolences, of course, and empathy for Charlie's children who are innocent in all this. But I have to say, I also have condolences for the countless of children that have passed away due to gun violence. Nothing in this conversation about gun violence. In Colorado, at the very same day, about the same time, there was a school shooting in where 4 children were injured or shot. I'm not sure if they passed away. You know what Charlie Kirk has said about gun violence? It's worth some people dying if we get to keep our guns in order to protect against government tyranny. I'm going to tell you something very important about that no one else is saying. You know how effing stupid it is to say that? The military, the government has tanks, missiles, drone, military helicopters. Charlie Kirk knows this. There's no... How are your little guns going to protect against government tyranny, you asshole? But he didn't care. He said what he had to say in order to get rich and where he wanted to in life. This proximity to power. Even if it meant children dying. This is what Republicans do. He did not care. They do not care. Republicans were taught not to care about school shootings by people like Charlie Kirk. The evil that man put out in this world has harmed so many, insurmountable. So do I have empathy? Of course I do. For everyone harmed by the words of people like Charlie Kirk. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like. Subscribe really helps the channel, really helps spread the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.